We're almost to The Last Jedi, let's wrap up this prequel trilogy. So Star Wars Episode 3 came out in 2005. It was once again written and directed by George Lucas, and this was actually the first Star Wars movie I got to see in theaters. I got into Star Wars like the year leading up to Revenge of the Sith. I still remember the hype leading into it. Everyone was excited. The theater was packed. Me and my friends all brought our lightsabers. And when I saw it in theaters, I was like, oh my gosh, this movie's amazing. It's the greatest thing ever. Reflecting back on the movie, I still don't know how I feel about Revenge of the Sith. I can 100% say that it is the best Star Wars prequel that exists. Well, Rogue One. The best in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. I think that Revenge of the Sith is fine. It's okay. Sometimes I lean more on the side of it's okay and I like it, and sometimes I lean more on the side of it's okay and I don't like it. But starting out with some of the stuff that's cool in this movie is the opening when they're all going to get the Chancellor. That was sweet. I like that whole sky battle on top of Coruscant. The effects in it too are significantly better than episodes 1 and 2. And I don't know if that's just because it came out 3 years later than episode 2, but it does feel like there is a lot more detail and a lot more just like action happening. And it's really the first time that we get to see the Clone Wars on the big screen. Now we have the Clone Wars TV show. We also have stuff like Rebels. So we've seen battles in Star Wars before, and battles in Star Wars weren't a new thing, but in this prequel trilogy, we didn't really get a lot of that. I mean, the war broke out at the end of Attack of the Clones, but I liked seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan act like generals, and I like the fact that Anakin and Obi-Wan in this scene, you feel like they are friends. They're finally spending time with each other in this saga, and I'll even say I liked Hayden Christensen in this scene. Some of his acting and his delivery can still be wooden, but I like some of his lines when he's like, this is where the fun begins. I was kind of like, oh, you are the cocky, awesome, arrogant pilot that Obi-Wan told us about in the original Star Wars. Once you get onto the hangar itself, you're introduced to the battle droids, and Obi-Wan and Anakin just cut through them like butter. But then you get into the Count Dooku fight, which I do think is significantly better than the Count Dooku fight in Attack of the Clones. Obi-Wan gets taken out really early in that fight, but I like Anakin squaring off with Count Dooku. I like the banter that they have while they're fighting, and I do like the actual part when Anakin kills Count Dooku. I like how Palpatine's kind of antagonizing him like he did with Luke in Return of the Jedi, and of course you have the now classic do it. I like how Anakin's kind of grappling with his decision to kill Count Dooku. It's like he's not totally set on this idea of killing. Now, maybe they could have done this at the end of Attack of the Clones, because this whole Count Dooku thing, it kind of feels like them just trying to tie up loose ends from Attack of the Clones. But whatever, it was a cool scene. Now, in the prequel trilogy, each movie has its new bad guy. You know, you had Darth Maul in Phantom Menace, you had Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones, and now we're introduced to General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith. Now, General Grievous, I had friends going into Revenge of the Sith who told me how awesome General Grievous was because they watched the Clone Wars micro-series on Cartoon Network. I wasn't one of those people that watched it. I still haven't watched it. I'll get around to it at some point. But to have this new substitute for Count Dooku and Darth Maul walk, and he just goes, hey, how's it going? He's got this weird cough going on. I don't know. He does work as like the muscle, but he's not anything beyond that. He feels like a useless puppet that Palpatine's just like, all right, you can just, you know, be the general. I have other plans. You just go do your thing. Try not to screw anything up. Let me focus on Anakin here. And the overarching villain of the entire saga is Palpatine, Darth Sidious. And really, for Revenge of the Sith, you could have just made him the main villain. He really is the main villain. You don't even need General Grievous. There is kind of a cool lightsaber fight with him and Obi-Wan in the middle of the movie, which again, I like that whole scene on Utapau with the clones and General Grievous fighting Obi-Wan. That weird lizard thing that Obi-Wan is riding, that I didn't like that much, especially when you're trying to maintain a low, quiet profile and that thing is doing its weird like squawks. I felt again like I was seeing more of the Clone Wars, and I liked seeing the Clone Wars. But what really makes this movie work as well as it does is that whole Anakin and Palpatine relationship. I like seeing Palpatine toying with Anakin, and he wants him to be his personal representative on the Jedi Council, even though he knows that the Council is not going to make Anakin a master. So of course Anakin gets upset about that. He confides some things in Palpatine, and Palpatine's able to go, you know, oh, the dark side Anakin, Darth Plagueis the Wise. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. Not to say the whole movie's great, and you still have all the Anakin and Padme stuff, and Padme for the majority of this movie is pretty much useless. I think I actually read the reason for that is because Natalie Portman was such a jerk on the set of The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones that George Lucas wanted to write her out of the movie as much as possible. That could be completely fake, I don't know, but it's kind of funny. But she spends the entire movie just pregnant, sitting in an Anakin and Padme's apartment, and you still have some of that dialogue of, I just want to go back to Naboo, where there was nothing but our love. I don't know, it's easier to look past it in Revenge of the Sith because there's some more interesting stuff happening in this movie, and because it's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is Anakin turning to the dark side, and we finally get to Anakin's turn to the dark side, and it's not done very well. I like when Anakin finally realizes that Palpatine is the Sith Lord. I don't know how he didn't figure that out earlier though, but he goes like, you're the Sith Lord that we're looking for, and he goes and tells Mace Windu, and Mace Windu goes and takes a couple other Jedis to go arrest Palpatine, which leads into a lightsaber fight that's really not that great. The lines leading into it, as cheesy as they are kind of fun. Like when Palpatine goes, I am the Senate. But him doing that weird barrel roll at the beginning was weird. The fact that he took out 2 Jedi at the very beginning was stupid. Kit Fisto holds in there for like another 3 seconds, and then it's just Emperor and Mace Windu. And Ian McDiarmid McDermott as the Emperor, like I said, is really good, but his lightsaber stunt work and not so much. He makes all these weird faces when he's fighting, and he's kind of like stabbing Mace Windu like, heh. But like I was saying, okay, Anakin's actual turn. There is a really good scene before that fight starts where it's Anakin and Padme, and I think Anakin's in like the Jedi Temple and Padme's in their apartment. There's no dialogue, they're both just staring out the window, kind of looking in each other's directions, although they don't realize it. And this really ambient music is happening, and you can tell Anakin's thinking, he's trying to make a choice. Do I stick with the Jedi, in which case Padme probably dies? Or do I take Palpatine's teachings, in which case Padme might live? No dialogue needs to be spoken, you get all that just from watching their facial expressions. And it was good, it was a really good scene. Then Anakin goes to Palpatine's office, Mace Windu has Palpatine on the ground. For a second, Palpatine's trying to be all frail and weak, and then he goes the whole like, no, you will die. As much as I love Ian McDermott, I really could have gone without that line. I don't know, it felt a little campy. But Anakin is ultimately right in what he's telling Mace Windu. He's saying, no, this isn't the Jedi way. He needs to be brought to court. He has to stand trial. But Anakin cuts off Mace Windu's arm, Palpatine throws him out the window, and Anakin's just standing there like, what have I done? And that's a good moment. He's like, I can't believe I just did this. You can tell he's still kind of grappling with that good and evil thing. And then right after that, he goes, yes, I will do whatever you ask, Palpatine, I am your servant. But Anakin, like 5 minutes ago, you just turned this guy over to the Jedi for being a Sith Lord. You just killed a Jedi, and obviously you're really mortified by it. His actual turning point just felt really rushed. Again, why I think they should have gotten to this sooner, maybe at the very beginning of this movie, maybe at the end of Attack of the Clones. But it is kind of a cool moment seeing Palpatine put the hood over his head, and he goes, henceforth you shall be known as Darth Vader. And that's how Darth Vader got his name. There was no mystery behind it, there was no clever meaning behind it, it's just Darth Vader. I mean, how do Sith Lords get their names? Darth Maul, Darth Tyrannus. Is it like an ABCD kind of list where we just go in alphabetical order naming them like we do with hurricanes? Oh, let's see, T, Tyrannus, U, who cares, V, oh, Vader. I don't know. I wanted something more than that, though, for one of the greatest villains of all time. After Anakin's actual turn to the dark side, though, when he's storming the Jedi Temple and he murders the younglings, then he goes and murders all the Trade Federation dudes. That stuff I think is really cool. Now it can get a little cute or whatever with the younglings. Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do? Anakin just pops out a lightsaber and you know all these kids are gonna die. I definitely wouldn't have minded Anakin actually taking on a Jedi Master in the Revenge of the Sith video game, which I have on PS2, and it's actually really fun. In that level, when you're going to the Jedi Temple, you actually do have to fight a Jedi Master. I'm like, oh, that would have been cool if a Jedi Master came out to fight Anakin. But we just get younglings, whatever. And before or during all that happens, I can't really remember, but that Order 66 scene happens, and that's also a really good scene. There's a lot of really cool shots in there. I like when Ki-Adi-Mundi is going on that one, the snowy planet, it's like a stormy planet of some kind. But his clone troopers are behind him and the camera just pans down to their boots and they're running and they just stop all of a sudden. And he gets wiped out. It's actually kind of interesting watching that scene. Now having seen most of the Clone Wars TV shows, so I can go, oh, Plo Koon and Ki-Adi-Mundi and Aayla Secura. Like, I know these people, kind of. And how they, like, echoed the screams over all of the madness that was going on. It's an effective scene. Obi-Wan and Yoda get back to the Jedi Temple. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And Obi-Wan goes and tells Padme, Anakin's turned to the dark side. I have seen security holograms of Anakin killing younglings. That's ultimately the thing with Revenge of the Sith. There's a lot of good moments in it, but there's still a lot of that Lucas dialogue sprinkled throughout. So Obi-Wan goes to Mustafar to try to take out Anakin, and that Anakin-Obi-Wan fight that ultimately this whole prequel trilogy has been leading up to. Overall, the fight is pretty cool, and I don't mind how fast they're going. I like the choreographed stuff that they're doing, but there are still moments when it does feel like a dance. Like there's one point Obi-Wan's holding up his lightsaber, he just has it here, and Anakin hits it about 5 times without Obi-Wan moving it. And then of course this stupid moment. But there was still a little bit of grit to that fight. I like when Anakin's choking Obi-Wan, he has his lightsaber down on him, and Obi-Wan like kicks him on the ground. Now Anakin's kung fu kick right after that was a little stupid. But you know what I mean? Like there are cool moments sprinkled into this fight, but there's also just a lot of weird choreographed stuff. Especially at the end when the whole factory is like crumbling and they're like surfing on droids over the lava. Some cool moments, some dumb moments. While that's happening, Yoda's fighting the Emperor, and I don't mind that fight. I don't know, it works better than the Yoda Count Dooku fight in Attack of the Clones, I can tell you that much. I was actually thinking recently, why is it that I'm okay with this fight, but I'm not okay with Yoda fighting an Attack of the Clones? I think one, because he's fighting the Emperor, the ultimate bad guy in the galaxy. But I think they also could have had this really cool subplot in the prequel trilogy that explains why in Empire Strikes Back Yoda's like, no lightsabers, you don't need that, just the Force. Like episode 1, the Clone Wars have started. Yoda is a general, he's still wise, but he can still crack out a lightsaber and do some business, but he doesn't have a cane because he doesn't need a cane to walk, because if he can handle a lightsaber, then he doesn't need a cane. And then after this fight with Sidious, then he can be like, oh, we don't need lightsabers, just the Force. You know what I mean? Like that would have been cool, right? But Yoda loses, he goes into hiding, Obi-Wan cuts down Anakin. There's that scene on the hilltop when Obi-Wan's telling Anakin, like, you are the chosen one. That could have been more impactful if that scene didn't go on for so long, but since the scene got cartoonier and cartoonier as it got on, I was kind of just waiting for all that Mustafar stuff to wrap up by the end. The rest of the movie is kind of just connective tissue to A New Hope. You know, Luke and Leia are born, Padme dies of a broken heart. However, I do gotta acknowledge one of the greatest moments that I've ever had in a movie theater. It's when Anakin is on that operating table, he's being turned into Darth Vader, when the mask goes on his face, it's just a profile shot of him, the helmet slides on, and then you hear Darth Vader breathing for the first time, just dead silent, and then all of a sudden, I remember everyone in my theater cheering and applauding. Like, that was a cool scene. Then after that, when he's going, where is Padme? Is she alright? And of course he does this big Frankenstein, no! Okay, more George Lucas dialogue. The very last scene in this movie, it ends with such a great scene. Obi-Wan going to take Luke to Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. The Force theme is playing. He hands baby Luke to Aunt Beru and she goes and meets up with Uncle Owen on that same hilltop that Luke once stared out off of. And the movie ends with them staring into the sunset holding A New Hope in their arms. And that ultimately, I think, is how I feel about Revenge of the Sith. The movie has a lot of great moments. There are a couple of cool lightsaber fights in there, a couple of cool scenarios that happen. I like seeing more of the Clone Wars, like the battle above Coruscant and the stuff on Utapau and all of the Yoda stuff on Kashyyyk. But it's still riddled with a lot of George Lucas dialogue, some weird Shakespearean romance stuff between Anakin and Padme. Anakin's actual turn to the dark side is kind of dumb. I wish that he did a little bit more as Darth Vader. And that end fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of veers a little more on the style over substance side of things. But you also have that Anakin-Palpatine dynamic that really works in this movie. The Anakin and Obi-Wan relationship took a backseat because, again, they are separate for the majority of this movie. And because of that, and the fact that they're separated from most of the first two movies as well, the emotion at the end of the movie really doesn't work that well. At the end of the day, I can find a lot of things to like about Revenge of the Sith, but I can also find a lot of things that don't work about it. So I don't know, this is the Star Wars movie that I flip-flop on the most. Some days I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Some days I'm like, it's kind of not fine. But it really is, I'm just like, it's okay. You know, it could have been a lot better, but compared to Attack of the Clones and The Phantom Menace, it's pretty good. I actually don't mind watching Revenge of the Sith every couple years. You know, it's got moments in it. It's just the quality you come to expect from Star Wars, it doesn't quite reach that. So Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Have you guys seen it? Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. I know this can be kind of a divisive one among fans. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are in the middle like me. Whatever you think about this movie, write it down below. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys liked it, you can click subscribe and check out some of my other videos, and I'll catch you guys next time.